Good morning and welcome to Weekends with Whitney. We are in Assumption Parish. We're about to show you how they're harvesting this entire farm of sugarcane. More than 2,000 acres. Woods Farm survived last year's tornado, but will it survive another generation? The state, status, and stability of one of Louisiana's biggest cash crops. Then we flee the fields and journey to the city. See how Baton Rouge's Stephanie Toups is taking a bite out of the Big Apple, and how an unknown medical condition recently turned out to be a blessing instead of career ending. Then Dr. Nick shows us how not to let big dreams intimidate us and instead inspire us. Sugarcane harvest season is in full swing. Come along and we'll show you how it's done and why this season is going to be one of the best ever. This is 500 of the 13 million tons of sugarcane being harvested now across Louisiana. The industry spans 22 parishes throughout 400,000 acres of land. Lance Goday and Kevin Falcon own 2,000 of those acres here at Woods Farm in Pankerville. It's in their blood.
I was probably about 10 or 11. I used to always come ride with my uncles. And I mean, I loved it. I knew it was what I wanted to do.
You did.
So, come 15 years old, I decided that I wanted to start on the farm. So I started, and all throughout high school, I was working on the farm. And I mean, when I got out of high school, I just knew this is what I wanted to do. I mean, it's wonderful out here. I mean, everything about farming is just in my blood. I'm fourth generation.
Kevin is third generation.
My dad was a small farmer and had a couple of partners that was in his family. And I came out of high school working with him and wasn't quite big enough for me to maybe step in with him.
So in 1990, Kevin came here to work for the Woods family. A few years later, the Woods bought his father's farm. It's now come full circle. Last year, Kevin and Lance bought this entire farm.
We pretty much live in a dream that we work here and now we own it. It's a dream come true, to be honest with you.
We get along real well. We both are on the same page, and I mean, we do what we can to get it done.
To get it all done, they divide to conquer. Kevin mostly handles the fields, Lance, the books.
I don't always wear my overalls and carry my pitchfork. I do have to take care of bills. I mean, it's more than just sticking a cane in the ground and watching it grow.
They've grown quite a successful business. Last year, they grew more sugar per acre than any other farm in Assumption Parish. But it didn't happen overnight. They plant 500 acres every year in a rotation. The following 3 years, they cut it. Then, it's no good. They burn the field in the fall and replant in the spring.
You got to get it right, because that plant that we planted, it's going to be in the ground for you 3 to 4 years. So you want to make sure it's done right.
Grinding is grinding, but planting's painstaking.
Plant season is just a little more hectic than grinding.
Last year's planting season was worse than hectic. It was catastrophic. An F3 tornado tore through Woods Farm.
You look at the weather, and when they predict, bad stuff, you think it's just not going to happen to you. But that day, we decided to go home at noon. We sent everybody home, and thank God we did.
Just a few hours later, the nearby Ace Hardware security camera captured the tornado's wrath and a woman who miraculously survived.
I got a phone call and was told by Kevin, you got to get over here. It's just destroyed.
Pretty much leveled everything we own. I think we had a claim on every piece of equipment we had.
The tornado lifted their 50,000-pound harvester off the ground, carried it 20 feet, and dropped it on its side.
It was totaled. The surprising thing, you see all the tornadoes out west that just levels everything, and we normally don't have that here. But to see what happened on our farm and the Ace Hallway across the street, well, I mean, I wasn't expecting to see what I saw when I got to this farm.
With 140-mile-an-hour winds, it was one of 61 tornadoes that tore through 11 states in the second-largest February tornado outbreak in history.
I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day I went to work, and you're just looking around and wondering, where do you even start? And there was just one employee that just went out in the yard, picked up something, and just started forming a pile, and that's how it all started. Everybody picked up, and I mean, it all came into place. I mean, it was devastating. Everybody was safe, which was the best part about it. But I mean, we've all came together. We all got stronger. We learned a lot from this.
They got new equipment and got back in the saddle. It's still a climb.
Yes, it is.
He even let me take it for a spin.
I don't think I've ever driven a $400,000 piece of equipment. I don't think anybody would have let me but you.
There you go.
In just seconds, it chops the top leaves, cuts the stalk at the bottom, dices it into little pieces, and shoots it out.
How fast are we going, do you think?
Look, 3.3 miles.
Oh, Lord, it feels like we're going 30. Because I'm nervous.
Go too fast or too slow, you'll miss the wagon.
Go forward just a little bit. There we go. You got it, girl.
All right, yeah, I was losing a little out of the back, wasn't I? Oh, boy.
They load 40 wagons a day, 900 tons. Once full, each goes right to the sugar mill. There's only 18 hours to turn stalk into sugar or harmful bacteria sets in. So the mills run 24/7. Farmers put in 12-hour days until fields are barren. It takes 70 to 90 days. The more, the better.
So it looks like I'll be spending Christmas right here in this seat. I mean, last year we were home for Christmas. This year, don't look like it's gonna happen. The thing about it, you got to look at it, the longer we out here, the more money we ain't gonna end up making.
This year's making out to be one of the best.
Last year we made about 37 tons to the acre. This year we're looking to make almost a mid-40.
Oh, my.
So that's a lot more.
Would that be one of your best years yet?
That would be, our best year was 49 tons. This year is going to be probably our second best.
The sugar content of cane is equally excellent.
If you got a high sugar content, a lot of times you don't have the tons with the high sugar content. This year we got a very good, sugar content, and the tons is going with it, which is we got the best of both worlds, So it's good. I'm gonna be straight with you.
You're gonna be putting some money in the bank this year.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct.
He's also able to bank on stable sugar prices. It's now 24 cents a pound.
Obviously, we would love to have a little bit more, but they pretty stable enough to us to run this farm, make a living. Like I said, obviously we wouldn't mind having a little more, but we can make a living the way it's at now.
It's a living Kevin hoped his children might want too, but his daughter's studying to be an occupational therapist, and his son has other interests too.
My son came work with us a little while, but I mean, you can't push nothing on nobody, and he think he'll probably do his own thing.
For Lance's children, it might materialize.
That's what I'm striving for. That's definitely what I'm striving for.
It's hard work. I gotta help my dad every 2 months.
We try to be a voice for our industry, to keep people aware of who we are and what we do. Because I mean, I want this business to survive. I want my kids kids to be in this industry. I mean, I would love to see 5th, 6th generation. I would love to be an old man in a rocking chair, or have my son or my grandson come bring me out in the field and show me these new methods of harvesting cane or anything like that. I mean, I would hope that would come one day.
We'll need that next generation too. Every year, sugarcane has a $2 billion economic impact on Louisiana, and we're one of the few states in the U.S. that can grow it. Still ahead. Growing and going with your dreams. That's what Stephanie Toups did 12 months ago when she moved to New York City. How she's fighting to make it big in the Big Apple. Then Dr. Nick on how to make it big wherever you are and whatever your dream, as Weekends with Whitney continues.
Each morning in Baton Rouge, we rise to meet opportunity. We carry the weight of responsibility proudly. We choose our paths. We move fast and we fly high. We light the way for others to follow. We make it happen. But what really matters is what happens when we land at home. Baton Rouge Metropolitan Airport. Fly easy.
Welcome back to Weekends with Whitney. We wrap up our series today on Louisianians taking a bite out of the Big Apple with Baton Rouge's Stephanie Toups. It was just a year ago that she moved to New York City, and she is already making things happen. Stephanie Toups walked into her dream here in New York City's Times Square, the hub of Broadway. Her love of musical theater began with Playmakers.
I did A Christmas Carol with Playmakers of Baton Rouge in the 6th grade, and one BFA later, here I am. I fell in love with it immediately, with the people, with the atmosphere, with the idea that there was something bigger than middle school going on out there. And it gave me something to focus on, something to pour my heart into.
She was in nearly 50 productions across South Louisiana, majored in musical theater at Texas Christian University, then made moving to New York City her mission.
It sort of became one of those things where, like, if I tell enough people, I have to do it. I knew I needed to jump in, just dive in completely. And I just set a date. I was like, I'm gonna move in the fall. I'll do it in the fall.
But just weeks before her big move, another chronic sinus infection raged. She called her ENT.
I went to him right before I moved and I was like, I am so sick all the time, how do we fix it? And he did a CT scan and he was able to see everything.
Everything about her sinus cavity was all wrong and had been her entire life.
Never knew it. I mean, I'd always had bad allergies and like really bad, and I have allergy triggered asthma too.
Surgery was the only solution.
For my sinuses to get that cleared out internally so that I could sing. I found out that I had never had really enough air to breathe properly to sing before.
For 20 years, she'd had to work twice as hard in voice lessons as other singers. After surgery, she had to completely relearn how to sing.
It was a challenge for a little while because the resonating space had changed. I didn't have the same shaped cavity in my head that I was singing with before.
Yet only a month after surgery, still relearning how to sing and not even sure how good she'd ever be, she moved to Manhattan to break into Broadway.
It was a wacky, 2016 was a crazy fall, let me tell you.
For 6 months, she went to audition after audition.
Auditions is a very long and complicated discussion, but for the most part, they tend to start at 10 a.m., which means sign in. They'll start taking names down on the official list at 9, which means you have to be there anywhere. I've had days where I walk in at 8 and can get seen, but during peak season, I had a morning where I showed up at 4:45 to an audition, and I was number 32 in line. And the people just kept coming and kept coming. So it can be wacky.
It can also be deflating.
Kind of mantra for 2017 has been that A, you can't compare your journey to anybody else's. we're all coming from different things, and somebody's going to book this and it's going to lead them there, but you have to do this, that, and the other. So everybody's got a very different journey, and none of them is less valid or less important or less glamorous than the other one. And my big 2017 thing has been small victories are still victories. This is a city and a business and a career path that can really make or break you. And if you let it's a lot of rejection. I have got to keep reminding myself to like focus on what was good about what happened so that the loss doesn't break me.
And just as she was mastering that, she got a role in not one, but 2 plays.
The timeline was I booked actually Miss Nelson and Lily Marlene within days of each other.
Wow.
I went from 6 months of nothing, which in the grand scheme of things and in this life in city is not a long time at all, but it was rough for a little while. And then within 2 days, I booked both of those, and then because those allowed me to stay in the city for the summer, I was able to audition for and get involved with Polka Dots, the Cool Kids musical.
Her career suddenly snowballed. On her way to her first performance in Lily Marlene, it hit her.
I happened to walk through Times Square, and I had to stop and have this moment of, I am on my way to open my first show in New York City, right off of Times Square. And it was surreal. It was really something.
This month, she celebrates surviving her first year in the Big Apple.
I'm very excited to say that after my first year in New York City, I am working as an actress. It's happening. I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing I said I was going to do. I feel like I am exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to be doing.
Stephanie has some upcoming auditions that, if she lands them, could put her right on Broadway. We'll be rooting for her, and we'll let you know. And still ahead, Dr. Nick on the pull, power, and promise of any dream, and how to make it happen, as Weekends with Whitney continues.
Maggio, the only way to go. Maggio Buick GMC, your satisfaction's our specialty. We really deliver on Falls River, here in New Roads. Small town atmosphere, legendary service for over 60 years. Maggio, the only way to go. The only way to go, that's Maggio.
9-time winner of the prestigious Buick GMC Mark of Excellence Award. There is a power in any world we encompass, but Dr. Nick joins us this morning with the power of New York, since we are doing
New York.
People taking it in the Big Apple.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm always impressed that they're not intimidated, because it seems, I mean, it's so big, and it seems like everyone's doing everything, and yet they feel like they can too. Why does New York fill people with that kind of hope and inspiration?
One of the reasons is because of the way it's grid. Avenues and streets. I mean, when it was put together, I think early 1800s, it was done with the intention of making it very simple for people to navigate. And if you think about New York, it's not the city of meandering. I mean, it's all, you're either going forward or you're going left or right. It's avenues and streets. So you never really get lost in New York. That's real power in a city.
That's true. 1, 2, 3, 4.
When you've got it down within 24 hours, you know kind of where you are. The Upper East Side, the lower, you know, Harlem. It's just an amazing grid. And, you know, but there's so much to New York, Whitney. I mean, the iconic skyline. Again, Broadway. I remember I was there not too long ago, literally walked from Chinatown into Little Italy.
Oh.
You know, you're moving. I remember going once, and a good friend of mine said, "What do you feel like?" And I said, "I would love an authentic Russian restaurant." Oh. Took me to an authentic Russian restaurant, and I had authentic Russian vodka.
What do you think?
I don't remember
What was better, the food or the vodka? Doesn't remember much.
But that's the city.
Yes.
It's just a city of I don't know how many languages, how many cultures.
Oh, I can't tell you how many we heard. We kept saying we must have heard hundreds.
Just
I couldn't even pick them out.
Yeah, so some have implied, I haven't done much research on it, that people live longer. And all I can figure is that if that's the case, it's got to be because you walk.
Oh.
I love New York because I walk.
You're right.
I rarely have gotten in a cab. I'll take a subway, but only when it's a really long stretch.
Sure. We probably did 8 to 10 miles a day.
And you never knew it?
No. And well, my back kind of knew it by the end of the day.
Oh, okay.
You know, and my feet,
okay.
you know, but I was a little sore, and we were hauling camera equipment.
Oh, that's right. You were hauling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pat mule.
Yeah. That's different. But even there, that was great exercise.
Oh, it was.
That gave you a chance to eat all the pizza you wanted.
And still lost 5 pounds. I probably found them back in Louisiana, but I'm telling you, got on that scale the next day, I was like, yeehaw.
Yeah, there's something else about New York that I find fascinating. It's what we call a liminal city. Liminal meaning you're out of your structure. Liminal is on the edge, in between. And when you're in New York, you're kind of in between. You're not in your normal structure, so your identity shifts to doing things that you would not ordinarily do. Las Vegas is probably considered a liminal city, but I don't think any city can compare to the liminality of New York. I'm telling you, I was there once, went to a great restaurant, Nobu, took my sister and niece and said, we're going to sit at the bar and order whatever we want. And Susan said, Nikki, don't do it. I said, it's going to be fine. Whitney, I ate peanut butter and jelly for 8 weeks.
How much was the meal?
I'm not telling you, but I'll tell you this, I didn't regret it.
Really?
There's something
when the bill
about,
came, you didn't die.
Well, actually, I did a little bit. I gave.
It was almost. It had to have almost been 1,000, right?
It was way up there.
Oh.
But Whitney, what a moment! What a moment! And again, sometimes you got to splurge and go out of the box and say, "I'll eat peanut butter and jelly. I'll do without in order to have this."
This moment.
There is something very powerfully toward mental health to me to say that we sacrifice other things to be in that moment that is so grand. When will I ever have that experience again? And I live with the memory.
Oh, right.
I say, go to New York. You know it.
Oh, yeah.
You love it.
Oh,
don't
I
you?
do.
What are some of your loves? I mean, the food I know.
Oh,
the theater.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the energy.
The energy.
Oh, you can just be. And I stayed really close to Times Square because we were doing.
I do too.
A lot of Broadway things, and I thought it would be noisy, but we stayed in a place. I just never heard the noise.
Yeah.
It was lovely, but you walk out and you just feel the excitement.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say you didn't hear the noise. I have struggled with New York in the sense that after about 4 or 5 days, the energy overtakes me because it's the city that never sleeps, and I don't tend to want to sleep when I'm there.
Right.
And because there's just always something to do, and that's a struggle for me. But I believe the people that live there don't get so caught up in the energy. That's a guess that I have. I
think you're right.
They live in a normal, everyday. In fact, I've had many people in New York that live there say they live in neighborhoods. It's very neighborhoodish.
Yes.
That, you know, you and I go as travelers and we want to go all over the city, but people want to go, when I go to visit there, I have friends who want to take me to the same restaurant. And I'm like, why? Because they're known.
They know it's good.
But see, we go as tourists, we don't want to go to the same restaurant every time.
No. I talked to Jamie Wax and had a chance the first evening I was there to spend a little time with Jamie, who's doing amazing things and changing so rapidly that actually I didn't feature him in the people in New York taking a bite of the Big Apple, although he is taking big bites.
And you could have, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, but it's changed. His life up there is changing so fast. I just can't wait. So I promised him I'd come back in a couple of months and we'll do an update. So it's fast and furious, and he's got a play he's working on, taking it to Broadway. He thought he could do it in a year. Everyone said it'll be 3 years, and he said, you know, Whitney, they're right, it's going to take 3.
But how about the journey? How about the journey of just being there?
Yes.
And, you know, of every day not knowing what's coming. It's not one of these goal-centered cities. You're always moving and journeying, but it's definitely the place for writers. Definitely a place for books, publishers. I mean,
and musicians.
It's just iconic. And you know, people can talk about the East Coast and the West Coast. What would we be without New York? It was the beginning of the LGBT movement. You know, where it got its rise and thrust. You know, it's just been the beginning of so many, many great things. It's just an innovative city.
Yes.
And always will be in its diversity.
I read a quote of someone that said, every writer, if you want to write, should live in New York, but if you can't live in New York, live in a place that has that kind of energy and vibe. And I thought, well, that's interesting, but I don't know how many places like that there really are. But
people say that Oxford, Mississippi Has that vibe?
Oh,
now,
you know
went
what?
to Ole Miss.
Vibe, but not energy. Only because it's like, I love it, but it's sleepy.
Well, it's hard to compare to New York to anything. So you're right.
But I might put New Orleans there.
New Orleans.
Because it has so much creativity too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I read somewhere where someone said there's no nerd or quirk in New York. And that would be the same for New Orleans. It's whatever.
No one ever stares twice.
It's whatever.
You can be in whatever.
It's whatever. And every experience there has its moment. I wanted to quickly say I woke up one morning, go get the New York Times, and I walked down the street and I saw everybody moving into this theater. And it was just all sorts of people. And I said, something's going down. Ooh. Something's going down. I walked in. 20 minutes later, the curtains opened. 75-piece orchestra, 200-piece gospel choir that threw down for 45 minutes to a packed house. Now, and that was free. Well, actually, I dropped a tip. But, I mean, that's New York.
Yes.
You never know what you're going to get in that city, or what you're going to bump into, or how many bag ladies you're going to run into that want to talk to you.
Yeah, right. Or scream at you. I had one scream at me. Well, she screamed at everyone on the subway. Actually,
I bet. Yeah. But you take that almost as it's New York.
Thanks,
Good
Dr.
talking
Nick.
with you.
More Weekends with Whitney after this. Atlas Foundation Repair. Fixing your foundation problems for more than 30 years while preserving and protecting your trees. Thanks for sharing your time with us here on Weekends with Whitney. We hope to see you back here again next week. Until then, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But this morning, we leave you with this.
I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too.
That's okay. It's okay. All right.
It's still dropping. I had a little waist there. Sorry.
Yeah.